Okay, so we are going live here, and we have some folks coming in and joining us. We're going to get everybody situated here, so come on in. All right, we're going to start right on time at 1 o'clock. So come on in, get yourselves situated, and we will we'll start in a second here. So it is 12:57. We're going to start at 1 o'clock, and we'll go over the screen, and we'll go over what buttons to use, how to listen, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, 12:58, we're getting closer. So just come on in, get yourself situated. You should be able to see the beginning of the presentation. My name is James Kelly. That's the name on the list, right? So that's who we are today. Maybe tomorrow we could be somebody else, who knows? So when you come in, just get yourself situated, get yourself ready. This is, we're gonna start exactly at 1 o'clock. It will be 1 hour exactly as promised. And we're going to try to keep it fairly succinct so you can get something out of this, hopefully. We would really like that if you did. That would be nice. So if everybody's coming in, we'll get everybody situated. Okay. So we are gathering everyone together. Looks like we have a pretty good show today. Or showing, I should say. Maybe the show will be good too, who knows. But come on in, get yourself situated. We're going to walk through how to manage the screen if you haven't been here before. Hopefully some of you have been to some of our other sessions, which should be fun. Although they were some pretty good speakers, so I'm a little nervous that you're going to put me up against them. Okay, 1 minute. It is the 1 minute showtime call. So I have to tell you, it's a little weird sitting here talking to myself. Those of you that know me know that I probably talk to myself quite a bit though. So come on in, get settled. We'll start at 1 o'clock. And there's about 20 slides we're gonna go through. So if you're guessing how many there are, it's about 20. And I think it's gonna be really good. I haven't heard anybody talking about these topics yet. So I think it will be pretty interesting. All right, so people are still coming in. So we're doing okay here. Hopefully everybody is situated. Everybody can see my screen. If you can't see your screen, there is a little chat button down there that you could ask us a question if you can't see it, or maybe someone could help you on our team. All right, it is 1 o'clock. So everyone, welcome to how to navigate senior living options with COVID. So I will tell you, I heard a radio commercial the other day and it said, if one more person says in these trying times that they're going to get angry, well, I agree. So we're not going to start with that. We're just going to talk about life. We're going to talk about how life is today. We're going to talk about what senior living looks like during the times of COVID and how we've coped with some of it and how we look at moving forward. So let's start a little bit with some housekeeping issues. First one is the video muting and chatting. So what we have is a little snippet here. That is on your bottom left. You'll see unmute and start video. We are not using video and the mute button for you. That will only be used for us. So since we're the presenter, what we are going to ask you is on the right side towards the middle a little bit, you'll see the chat button. That chat button will give you the ability to write a note, whatever it may be. And we have some arrows. Gotta love arrows. So when you submit the questions, you'll see you can type in your questions in the bottom and we will respond to them. And it may be in the beginning or in the beginning, maybe during the presentation, maybe after the presentation, but you can type right in there what you're looking for. All right, and then the next part is the top right-hand side, top right-hand corner, you have a little box there. If you click that, you can change your view. So you can make my face disappear if you want, which I'm sure my wife would love. Or you could make the presentation larger, whatever you'd like. But I hope that that helps you figure out where we are. All right, so a couple of other housekeeping items. All right, we are going to record this session. So at the end of this, we will be able to send it to you so you can share it with your friends or family if you'd like, or like to see it again, whatever it may be. You'd have the ability to do that. So you can be able to share that. So now I guess I introduce myself. So I am James Kelly. I am the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for United Methodist Retirement Communities and Porter Hills. So a year ago, March, celebrated our 1 year of our affiliation. So UMRC has been around for 100 years, 110 years actually. And Porter Hills has been around for about 50 years. And obviously Porter Hills is in Grand Rapids, and UMRC, United Methodist Retirement Communities, is over in Chelsea, Michigan. So we affiliated together, came together as a family. We are a not-for-profit organization, so this wasn't a hostile takeover or anything like that. It was really a merging of two mission-based organizations coming together to serve seniors, which is our mission. So the question that I think is interesting is that I put on here is, why am I qualified to be here? Well, I'll tell you, number one, it is my life's mission. Anybody that has ever met me before, I believe that there is a better quality of life for people, especially seniors, than living in their own home. My grandparents, I can tell you, are a prime example. Like many of you said, there is no way I am ever going to move to a retirement community, and they didn't. And so when I was in college, I used to go to my grandparents' house once a week and do the grocery shopping. My grandfather had dementia. My grandmother actually has never driven in her life. And so I went and did their grocery shopping once a week. And once a week, that was their social hour. They didn't see anybody else. No one else did their grocerying. I did a little bit of cooking for them and that kind of thing. And as you see on here, I'm second generation senior living. My father was in senior living his entire career. And for some reason, we could never talk them into moving. And so I thought to myself, what a way for me to be able to share a mission is to get people to understand and want to move to retirement communities. I've worked in this business for about 25 years. I actually did start right out of college, so this is a big thing. I was a national consultant, and what that meant was I went to retirement communities and helped them figure out why they couldn't get people to move in. And I did that for my entire career until I came here. So let's move on. So I think I'm qualified. You might have a different opinion, but I do. So when we talk about senior living options during COVID, we're really looking at, why are you here today? The thing I always say is that no one wakes up on a Wednesday morning and says, I'm going to go get on the computer, listen to a Zoom, and figure out about retirement communities because it's going to be fun. Looking for a senior living community is not necessarily always fun. For some people it is, because you're really looking forward to what is the next step. Some people don't like it. So I'm hoping that this helps you figure out a little bit more of where you want to go. What do you want to do with your future? And what do you want to get out of your future? What goals do you have? And then the biggest question that I hear all the time is, when's the right time? I'll tell you what I tell people when the right time is. It is like the straw that broke the camel's back. I have had people tell me that it was time to move to a retirement community because their tractor broke, their lawn tractor, and they didn't want to buy another one. I've had people tell me that I'm tired of these stairs, that I'm the only one that drives, and so I have to pick up all my girlfriends to go play cards, and I'm tired of picking everybody up. It's different for everyone. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to do this. You do it when you're ready, but you have to be at least a little rational about it. So the question is, what do you get excited about? And we're going to talk about some things that hopefully you get excited about. Before we do that, I wanted to share with you some real information. And so before this started, I said to you, we're going to talk about a few things that other people aren't. And one of the things we're going to talk about is, what is senior living like during COVID? What has it been like? What have we seen in our communities? We've seen that services are much more important than anybody thought. So to share a little bit with you, we have two major life plan communities. They're called Continuing Care Retirement Communities. One is in Chelsea, Michigan. It's called Chelsea Retirement Community. The other is in Grand Rapids. It's called Porter Hills Village. And these are campuses that have independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, all the levels of care there. And so what we're seeing is that Chelsea Retirement Community, in independent living, the meals are included. So you get a meal allowance and everybody gets a meal, and housekeeping is included, and all those types of things that you see in a lot of retirement communities. And so at Chelsea, during COVID, every day meals were delivered, and it was a hot lunch and a cold dinner delivered every day. And the cold dinner were things like chicken Caesar salad and nice things like that, or something that could be heated up. On the other side, with Porter Hills Village, meal plans are not included. And so you were able to get a meal delivered if you'd like. But what we learned is that most people didn't realize that meals were so important to them, that they felt like when they moved to Porter Hills Village that they were okay going out grocery shopping all the time and kind of continuing that life they had before they moved to the retirement community. And many people have said, maybe there's something else. So I think that's very telling that we see that even from our own community. The hardest part about COVID with senior living is interpreting the executive orders. So there are executive orders for people like you and I living in our own houses of the stay-at-home order and shelter in place and those kinds of things. But for retirement communities, we actually have to go under a different level. And so our shelter in place meant that we were not allowed to have people come and visit, plain and simple. It was for the safety and protection of the residents. So some residents would say, well, if I'm outside walking and my daughter happens to drive by, am I not allowed to talk to her? The truth is, you can talk to her. Like with most things, there's always loopholes. There's always a way to get around it. And so we tried real hard not to be the bad guy for independent living. But for assisted living and skilled nursing, it was a little bit different. The right thing to do was to protect the residents from anybody outside that could give them COVID. And it was difficult, I'll tell you, it really was. Some of the things we did grocery shopping for our residents, so our residents were able to still be able to continue to get groceries. And it was charged to their bills, and we had employees that were doing that. The drink carts were really fun. We did have cocktail carts that went around, and we knocked on everybody's door with our mask on and gloves and all that kind of stuff, and making neat drinks for people. We did that shore to shore. That was a really fun initiative. We were helping families visit safely by building, I know on the east side of the state where we have a little bit of construction on our campus, we built almost like a boardwalk, and the family members were able to come up to the windows and talk to people. We also, we purchased from our foundation actually, so it was donated money. We purchased about 40 iPads that we shared with a lot of the skilled nursing and assisted living residents so that they were able to set times and talk to their families through the iPads. We really tried hard to keep people connected to their families even though they couldn't visit. The other one is that we really wanted to keep folks moving. And so some of our activity programs where we weren't able to gather in a group, the classes, instead of having maybe 5 classes a day, we probably had 20. And what that meant was there was someone on a floor and you'd stand outside of your apartment and have a chair or stand, and we were doing exercise classes on a floor at a time. So there was still some socialization where you'd be able to get out and smile and have a good time at, trying to stretch. And, I was at the gym this morning and I do this weird stretch and, I'm laughing and having fun just like they were, our residents were during this time. So it was important for us to be able to still have some socialization and still have some activities going on. That was very, very important. So this is a really interesting theory that I have. Now, I have some data, hence the empirical data. What have we seen? We have seen a lot of people that lived in independent living. And so that's just like you and I. You were able to wake up in the morning, you make yourself breakfast, you go for a drive, you grocery shop, you dress yourself, you take your own pills, everything. You live independently, right? People that have lived independently, but because they were not able to necessarily see their daughter, where their daughter may have been doing their medications when they live in the community or other things like that, that people felt like they needed more care. And we saw a lot of independent living residents move to assisted living. They just said, I need more help than what I'm getting. So we saw that. So I thought to myself, well, there's got to be people that are living independently outside of the community that are saying, all right, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of cooking. I'm tired of cleaning. I'm tired of home maintenance. What happens if a pipe bursts while this COVID is going on, and who's going to come in and fix that? And are they testing themselves? How do I know they don't have COVID? How do I know that they're secure? You know, part of those executive orders is we were mandated to do testing. In the beginning, it was temperature, temporal or oral. We had to make sure everybody had a mask. We had to do all the hand washing techniques and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, the independent living residents, although they did not have the life that they thought they were having when they moved in, it's still better than what they had on the outside. So the hardest part really was visiting family. But through technology, we really tried to minimize that as much as possible. So the continuum of care is what we call it when there's independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing all on one campus, that if you do need more help, it's there. And that even goes for some memory care. I can tell you that there are people that lived in independent living that they knew it was noon and they came down and had lunch, and they enjoyed their lunch and you know, spent the rest of their day. But during COVID, we may deliver the meal, and then, you know, an hour later, they were coming downstairs looking for their meal. So that's what I mean by some people just needed a little bit more help during these times. The employees were a really big part of COVID. I can tell you that right now. United Methodist Retirement Communities in Porter Hills has about 1,600 employees shore to shore. We are the second largest senior living provider in the state of Michigan, and we are the fourth largest not-for-profit organization in the state of Michigan. So when you have 500 people like we do at some campuses, or even a handful of people at other campuses, relationships are built. And so while you may not be able to go to the dining venues or the bistro or cafe or whatever it may be, you were still able to see some employees that you called friends. And I can tell you personally, I did the same thing. There are people here that I've built personal relationships with, and I went to go and see them. I wore my mask. I'm an employee. I kept my distance, but I did talk with people. And there was a lot of that was going on because housekeeping was still continuing and some of those things. So the relationships were still there. But the big question really was, is this better than being in your home? You're going to be the only one that can answer that question. Part of your hindrance to this is you don't know what it's like to live in a retirement community. But I can tell you from people that I know that have lived outside of the community during COVID times, they were struggling. I did a lot of grocery purchases for some seniors in the area that I couldn't talk into moving to the community. People from church that I knew that were kind of stuck in their houses, didn't really feel comfortable driving. And then when you add wearing a mask and going through a grocery store and 6 feet apart and how long does it take? Some of us remember how long it took to get groceries, that they just didn't feel comfortable. And so I look at those situations and say, you really would have probably been better off in a retirement community because it was all there. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through. One of the things I really want to share, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but the not-for-profit difference. We are a not-for-profit organization. And so I'm going to explain to you what that means, because a lot of people say, oh, well, it means you don't make money. No, there's a difference. A nonprofit does not make money. Something like the Alzheimer's Association, they don't generate revenue, right? Alzheimer's Association is strictly donations. Without donations, there is no Alzheimer's Association. We are a business, so we are a not-for-profit. And what that means is that no one person or group of persons benefit financially from the running of this organization. So we have revenue, right? We have people that live here and they pay monthly service fees for their care, and we have employees and we have employee benefits and we have insurance and all those things. But the key here is that we do not run this organization for profit. Do we make a little bit of profit? Typically, yes. As Sister Mary Margaret told me in my first marketing job out of college up in Boston, she told me there is no mission without margin. And so that is very true. And so we do make a profit, but the difference is the profit goes right back into the community. And what I mean by that is it goes into employee morale, it goes into employee happiness, employee benefits, not raising monthly service fees, better food, better dining venues, all those things that you think of, well, boy, this carpet is worn. We really should get some new carpet. Well, we're not raising monthly service fees to change the carpet because we planned on those capital expenditures. But so during this time, we had employee support. We were buying groceries, and there was a food pantry for employees that didn't want to go grocery shopping. They were nervous about going grocery shopping. They were nervous about getting sick. We added a COVID, we call it PTO, paid time off allowance. I was thinking about what to write there because it's really kind of like vacation time, but if you have COVID, it's really not a vacation. And so this was, people were still able to get paid while they were working on the units, which was great. We also gave them additional dollars per hour to work in some of these units. We gave some people places to live because they didn't want to feel like they were taking COVID home. There was a lot of support. And I can tell you that the board, our volunteer board, was so helpful during this time to give us some guidance to say, you know what, it's okay. We're going to do this. It's going to cost us money, but it's worth it. We take care of our residents. We take care of our employees. We're all together. So that was really nice. So let's get into some of the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, right? So one of the things I can tell you is that people will come to me on a regular basis and say, James, I need assisted living. And I say, oh, you do? Did you drive here? Yeah, I did. Okay. Did anyone help you get dressed this morning? No. Do you do your own medications? Yes. You cook your own meals? For the most part. My doctor said that I need some assistance. I don't get around as good as I used to. Maybe I shouldn't cook anymore. The interesting thing is that doesn't mean you need assisted living. Independent living is just like you and I. We live in our houses, except it's nice not to have to cook. It's nice not to have to clean. It's nice to have some activities that you'd be able to go to or have fitness classes that are right there instead of having to drive everywhere. Maybe you don't feel comfortable driving. My wife has very poor vision. She does not drive at night. So there's certain things that just make life a little bit easier. Well, I got news for you. That's not assisted living. That's independent living. And so independent living is really a lifestyle. It means that, I'll give you an example. The average person that comes to us is about 75 years old, 75 to 80. And they say, James, I'm tired of cooking, tired of cleaning. I'd like to be able to make some new friends. I don't want to have to drive all the time anymore. I want to be able to have some fun. I love some educational courses. I love to watch a movie with someone. I love to watch sports with someone. It's really about that social aspect. But we all know that in the back of our minds, we're all going to need some type of care down the road. 7 out of 10 Americans require some long-term care throughout their life. So what is long-term care? Well, that could be assisted living. Assisted living, by definition, means that you need help with some activities of daily living. It is some medications. It is bathing, dressing, personal hygiene. I'll tell you, in assisted living, most of the time, we help our residents in the morning get themselves situated and acclimated for the day, and they're good for the rest of the day, other than some meals, and maybe they need a little bit of help here and there, but that they really need help here and there. Memory care is a little bit different. Memory care is for people that have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they need specific help. And I'll give you an example of that. If someone, we're trained in our communities that when someone says, I want to see my wife, instead of saying, Joe, your wife passed away 5 years ago, we don't do that. We say, Joe, you know what? I'm gonna look for her, but you know what? We're making cookies over here in the kitchen. Why don't we go over and get a cookie? And by the time we walk Joe over to get a cookie, Joe's now standing there eating a fresh baked cookie, feeling good and comfortable in his environment. By telling him that his wife passed away, It can be agitating. He can get upset. He can cry. It'll ruin everybody's day. So we're trained specifically in how to work with some of those examples. Skilled nursing is 24-hour-a-day care. It means that you cannot bathe yourself. You cannot dress yourself. In many cases, you cannot get around during the day without some type of help, or even a wheelchair in many cases. Can't transfer from a bed to a chair, a wheelchair to a commode, those kinds of things. It's care, and it's heavy care, but that's what we specialize in. So what you have here that have these pieces are things called continuing care retirement communities or life plan communities. And then the last one here that we have is something called a greenhouse model. And so it's like skilled nursing, but it's in a very home-like atmosphere. And there's not very many examples in the state, but we do have one of them, and it is in Grand Rapids. It's actually on the Cook Valley Estates campus, and it's phenomenal. But I wanted you to know the difference between some of these different levels of care. So let's talk about what are some of the options that you have now. Let's assume that you're sitting here saying, okay, this house is a bit much for me. I don't want to have to worry about cleaning or taking care of it or redoing a bathroom or whatever it may be. And you sit here and say, what are my options? But honestly, with COVID, what really are my options? Well, your first option really is to stay home. I can tell you that senior living, so retirement communities, only capture about 6 to 7% of the age and income qualified population. So let's talk about what that means. If you're joining us today, you received probably a direct mail piece. And that is we purchased a mailing list of age and income qualified seniors. It's a little bit of art mixed with science. But we purchased this list. We sent you out this invitation. And because of the parameters of the list, you should be able to afford to live in one of our communities. Those lists together for both sides of the state were about 60,000 people. So if only 6% of those people will choose a retirement community, doesn't mean it's ours, a retirement community, what does everyone else do? They stay home. So I think some of that is they're not necessarily educated about what a retirement community really is. There's a lot of fear about what does it cost. Sometimes there's a little bit of concern of, well, if I move into a retirement community, I'm not independent anymore. And that none of those are really true for the most part. There are ways to afford a retirement community. There are ways to feel independent even when you're in a retirement community. But when you stay home, you're still going to have to look at groceries, cooking. If you have stairs out front, do you need a ramp? Do you need an elevator? Do you need some type of chair to get to the second floor? How are you going to manage throughout that house for the long term? And I think the big one here is, depending on how long you've lived in your house, is if something does happen, how are you going to transition from your home to some type of additional care? Your children, for the most part, are going to have to do it. So you'd have to have some buy-in from your kids to say, Mom and Dad, if you want to stay here, you stay here as long as you want. And when you decide to leave, I'll go through the house, I'll go through your things, and we'll figure out what to get rid of and what to keep. That's a lot to ask a child when they're going through something like this. I did it for my grandparents, and I was a young man, and I remember quite honestly sitting in the closet of my grandmother crying because her clothes smelled like her. And this wasn't her home anymore. And so it was very difficult, very, very difficult, but it's an option. So home services and that kind of thing, you're going to have to look at. How do you get meals if you can't cook anymore? How are you going to get around if you can't drive anymore? Who's going to clean the house and some of those types of things? Let's talk about apartment living. So apartment living, it basically is you're going to downsize. It may not be age segregated. And I write not age segregated because it's a little bit different if you were in an age segregated apartment building versus a non. And so what I mean by that is when I was first married, my wife and I lived in an apartment building, and all of our neighbors, unbeknownst to us, were all seniors. And of course, I've worked in this business. My dad worked in this business. It's in my blood. I love seniors. I love people. And every day I'd come home and there was a guy who was on the first floor who'd be sitting there wanting to have a beer with me in the afternoon. And so, I was going to work, I was going to the gym, I'd come home, make dinner, that kind of thing. And so it was fairly late when I got home. And so, he would tell me I'm the only socialization he has all day. And so what I mean by that is it'd be different if you lived in an age segregated community where other people would be around during the day or have gone through similar life experiences, are going through similar life experiences. I did not understand what he was going through as a 85-year-old man, as I was a 23-year-old boy at that time, I guess, really, So it was hard for us. We had a friendship, but it wasn't the same. So I think that's something that you look at when you look at apartment living and age segregation and that kind of thing. And sometimes you can get a pool or a fitness center and some of those amenities, which are pretty nice too, though. So let's talk about condo living. In the Grand Rapids area, condo living is actually very, very popular. A lot of people have already sold their houses, moved to condos. I can tell you in the Chelsea area, it's not as popular. I think there's just a less product in the market, so there's less people living in condos. But condos can be nice. You still have equity, so you're still gaining some equity in your property. The downside of equity, obviously, is when you sell it, you have to sell it. That's number one. So someone has to buy it when you're selling it. So there's time that takes. There's also typically some upkeep that has to happen. You might have to paint it. You might have to put the carpet in. You might have to change the hot water heater. You might need a new bathroom, new kitchen, who knows, to make it sellable. All these things are options. But also you have to pay a 6% seller's fee. So, there's a lot of work that goes along with that. You still have groceries, you still have cooking. And let's be honest, as long as COVID goes on, groceries and cooking are different. They're not like they were before. It definitely is a lot more of a hassle. But you do reduce your expenses by downsizing, and typically the interior maintenance, the exterior maintenance is taken care of, but the interior is still yours, hence the change the bathrooms and the carpets and all those things. But you can typically get a pool or a fitness center and then even a garage. Again, retirement communities aren't for everyone, so don't make me feel like, or don't let me make you feel that if you don't choose a retirement community, there's something wrong with you. It's not true. Everybody's different. So when you talk about senior living itself, there are things called 55 plus communities. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard about these. Many times it's called an active adult community. They're very, very popular in warmer states. In warmer states, they're popular because people from the north typically would go to warmer climates, and these developers knew it, and they built smaller houses. Many times they are 2-3 bedroom houses. My mom lives in one, I can tell you that. Her house is probably 1,500 square foot. There's 3 bedrooms on the first, no, 2 bedrooms on the first floor, and then 2 full baths. And then upstairs, she has another full bedroom and a bath for visitors. For my mom, it was a really good move. My stepfather had retired from the military. My mom was actually not even 55 yet when they moved into the community, but I'm the youngest of 6, and we sold the house, or my mom sold the house that we grew up in. It was big, and it was a great option for her. I can tell you what was hard for her is when she moved into the community, I had told her, you're going to be one of the youngest people there. And I know this because the data shows that the average age in a community like Cook Valley Estates or Porter Hills Village or Chelsea Retirement Community or Cedars of Dexter is about 80, 83, 82, it kind of varies around that area. The really interesting thing is a 55 plus community, their average age is about the same. Most of the studies that I saw, it was about a 1 or 2 year difference, obviously lower than what it was in retirement communities, but it's not enough to make it feel like it's different, in my opinion. But if you move in early enough, you get the same benefits as condo living or apartment living. You get out of the house, you're downsizing, You have the ability to make some friends and those kinds of things. So all those factors are all there, but it's all really dependent and reliant on when you make that decision. My mom and my stepdad made that decision at 60 and 54. That's a very good time to make that decision. My mom is now 72, something like that. My stepdad, I think, is 76 or something, right? And they're now looking at what's the next step. This house, they still have all the interior and exterior maintenance. They're saying, should we be moving to a retirement community? And they're starting to go around and look around and see what's there. And we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to look around when we go a little farther through here too. So when we talk about this, we're asking, what is right for you? You're the only person that can answer that. Like I said before, don't feel bad if someone is trying to push you into a decision and you don't want to do it. You have to choose something that is going to be what you want to do. When's the right time? Same principle. The thing I can tell you is ask for help. One of the things that I have really been proud of in my career is, although I am sales, right? That's my title, sales and marketing. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I consider myself a resource. And I can tell you that anyone that works for me, the reason that they work for me is because they also consider themselves resources. Because if we talk you into moving to our community, more than likely, the salesperson that you talk to is going to see you every day. If you're unhappy, we see you every day. It makes a very big difference. We want to make sure that we match you properly with our community. If you like it, then you're going to feel good about being there. If you're interested in the swimming pool, if you're interested in wellness, if you're interested in dining, and you like what we have, well, then that's what changes the game for you. If you don't like our dining, you don't want to swim, you don't like the socialization that we have, we're not the right community for you, and that's okay. I would like someone to go to a community, it doesn't have to be ours. And so we look at ourselves as a resource that you can talk to us. In many cases, I can tell you, people have come to visit us and they looked at our community and we had a very nice time. Maybe we sat together and ate lunch. And then a couple of months later, they'd call back and say, hey, there's a little bit of a weird question. We're not going to move to your community. It's not in the right area. It's not near our kids. And I totally understand. Don't say no more. I get it. But we're thinking about moving to this community. Now, their contract's different than yours. Can you talk to me about that? And I would spend the time and I would talk to them. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, and we view ourselves as resources and not salespeople. So one of the things that we show through that is consistency of character. We're always nice. The food's always good. We're always going to be top end of customer service because that's what's important to us. So when you look at a retirement community, you're going to want to look to make sure that every time you go there, does it always smell good? Is the food always good? Are they always nice? Do they call you back when they say they're going to call you back? That's consistency of character. Next one's a little bit tough. Rational versus emotional. Normally in a presentation, I'd say, okay, how many CPAs do we have in the room, right? Accountants always get the brunt for this, of this joke here. And basically what I'm saying here is, if you look at a spreadsheet, let's say you just take a spreadsheet and you say, well, this is the square footage I get, this is the cost for it, these are the services I get, and at the end you say, yep, that's the cheapest one, that's where I'm going. That's a rational decision. Unfortunately, when you walk into a retirement community and it doesn't feel like home, that's emotional. That's not rational. So the cheapest one, if you're really a penny pincher, you're going to sit there and say, well, I'm not happy with the cheapest one. I want a little bit more. I need a little bit more. I deserve a little bit more. And that's where the emotional piece comes into this. And I would say it's probably about 25% rational, because you got to make sure you can afford it. Is it worth the money? There's something called a value proposition. Is it worth the price, right? If it's not, you're not going to go there, right? That's the rational part. The emotional part is, it just feels like home. I can't explain it. Everyone's friendly, everyone's nice. It's not too audacious. It's a very nice community. I feel comfortable there, right? Well, that's what you're looking for. You want something that's going to match a similar lifestyle to what you currently have. So that's going to be important to you. So you're going to have to manage your budget. You have to look at what kind of lifestyle you're looking for. What do you like to do for fun? What kind of maintenance is taken care of? And then at the end, what is going to happen if you need more care? When we talked about those apartments, we talked about the condos, we talked about staying home. If something happens, what are you going to do? Have a plan in place. I can't stress that enough. If you don't move to a community, have a plan. Visit assisted living communities, visit skilled nursing communities, visit rehabs, and say, I want to know where I'm going to go if something happens. It's very important to be a conscious consumer. And so I invite you to please do that. So when we talk about what's out there, we talked a little bit about our not-for-profit difference. So I'm not going to belabor that point. The for-profit, I am going to talk about a second. The for-profit and not-for-profit in our business, they view things very differently. The for-profit is literally what it is. It is someone that has an investment. They want that investment to generate either income or return. And so if the community makes extra money that year, it goes to the investors. If they feel like they're not getting a good enough return on their investment, they can raise fees. There's nothing that stops them from doing that. As a not-for-profit, we raise fees and we have to send them to the state to get approved, to say that to justify this is what it costs us to run the community. We only charge what it costs us to run the community and a little bit extra in case something happens. So it's like a little bit of a savings plan. And we want to make sure that the carpet's changed every few years. We want to make sure we can paint. We want to make sure that if we want extra computers in computer lab, that we can do that and we don't have to raise monthly service fees to do it. So that's part of why the board is such a big part of the not-for-profit. So there's two real types of communities too that come along with this. One is an entrance fee community. Entrance fees are typically from a not-for-profit. Basically because what happens is when you pay that entrance fee, we take those dollars, we invest them into very non-risky investments, we earn interest off them, and that interest helps us keep up with capital expenditures. Now, some accountants hear that's not exactly how it works, but it's, I think, a good explanation to understand why we charge an entrance fee. Because the monthly service fee, which is the next one, we charge really what it cost us to build the community, what it cost us to run the community. So, this is gas, electric, heating, insurance, employees, raises, all of those things. And as a not-for-profit too, all of our finances are available in a disclosure statement. You can see anything you want from a not-for-profit. For-profit will never show you their balance statements or anything like that. So the for-profits charge typically just a monthly service fee. It's typically a rental. And so what that means is you don't pay anything up front. You pay more per month. In most cases, it's about $1,000 a month. But typically their services and amenities are not as great as a not-for-profit. And by great, I mean there's not as many options, and those options are typically smaller. So I hope that's helpful. So the next one we go to here is we're talking about types of communities. So there are basically 4 different types of retirement community contracts that you could choose. And so we'll go through some of those so you understand what they are. The first one's a life care retirement community. Life care communities are always independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing all together. I've never seen one that has not been all together. It's not very popular in Michigan, but it is around the country. So if you're looking at other places, you may see that. The dollar signs, like the Zagat survey, right, show that it is the most expensive product. It's the most expensive entrance fee, and it's the most expensive monthly service fee. But what it means is that all your long-term care is included. So if you live in independent living and you need to go to assisted living, if you spend, picking a number here, $3,000 a month in independent living, and you move to assisted living, you only pay $3,000 a month. Your monthly service fee does not change. So you paid a little more up front and you pay a little bit more per month, but that's really what it is. It gives you some peace of mind that it's not going to change over time. The next one is a modified life care. So what that means is that you get something for your for your dollar according to what level of care you need. So if you're in independent living, Porter Hills Village is an example. If you're in independent living in Porter Hills Village and you need skilled nursing, you can go into skilled nursing and you get a discount for that care. And so you're not paying the going rate as someone coming from the outside, you get a discounted rate. And so that's what makes it a type B contract. Those also are almost always continuing care retirement communities, independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing, mostly because if they're giving you free care, they pretty much have to have care there. So that's a good point. The next one here is a type C community. And this is what Chelsea Retirement Community is. Type C does not always have to be a continuing care retirement community. Mostly because if you, it means that if you move from independent living to assisted living to skilled, you just pay the going rate at the time. Now you can see that there's $2 signs there. It is much less expensive than when some care is included in your contract. So it does tend to be less expensive. So what's interesting is because you're paying independently for your care or personally for your care, sometimes it's just independent living. Sometimes it's independent and assisted living. And in most, I wouldn't say most cases, but a lot of cases, it's all three together. So the last one here is a type D rental. And so with a type D rental, it's what we talked about before. There's no entrance fee, but they do have to recoup the dollars of construction. And so typically it's about $1,000 more a month to live in a community that does not charge an entrance fee. So I can tell you at Chelsea Retirement Community, actually at Porter Hills Village as well, there are rental contracts and they do pay more. At Chelsea Retirement Community, you actually have an option to pay a rental contract and pay a little bit more per month, or you can do an entrance fee contract and you can pay some money up front and save money on your monthly service fee. So we really try to be something for everyone. So here's something I want to explain to people now that we've gone through this. I'm going to go back a slide. When you see life care, and you see that CCRC, when we look at this, we look at it being the most expensive. I'm going to explain to you, I use the term Mary and Betty. And some of you may have heard this before, but I think it's a very good example. So Mary and Betty are both 80 years old. And Mary and Betty are deciding whether or not to move to a retirement community. So Mary decides that she's going to stay home. And so Mary is 80 years old. Mary has to go to the grocery store. She's still cooking, she's cleaning, she's taking care of the house, loves her garden, all those things. That's why she stayed there. Mary is assuming a level of risk that is higher than Betty because Mary is going to have to go to the grocery store when it's cold out, when it's icy, when it's raining, because she needs groceries. She has to go out where Betty doesn't have to. So what that means is that Mary is more likely to have a fall or an incident much sooner than Betty will. So if Mary at the age of 85 slips and falls on the ice out front of the grocery store, breaks her hip, goes to the hospital, the doctor may say, you're not able to go back to independent living. You're not able to live on your own anymore. You need to go to assisted living. You need help bathing and dressing and with your medications and those types of things, because quite honestly, you've been living on your own, so you need some help. And so Mary's going to go to assisted living, and Mary's going to live in assisted living for about 5 or 6 years, because Mary's lifespan, or her actuarial table for how long she's going to live is probably 90. And so Mary's going to live in assisted living and pay more money per month in assisted living. That's where some people say, well, I need to move to a retirement community because, well, I don't want to have to live 5 or 6 years in assisted living. That just seems silly when I could live in independent living. So let's talk about Betty now, right? So Betty is 80 years old. Betty chose to live in a retirement community. Betty has mitigated her risk because she does not have to go grocery shopping. She doesn't have to cook. She doesn't have to worry about pipe breaking at night or noises at night or the house being broken into or getting a ride somewhere. All these things are taken care of, and she's more social, she's more active, and she's, quite honestly, looked after. Other residents take care of other residents. Employees look at other residents. And I saw a resident the other day and I said, hey, you look a little tired. Are you doing okay? And she said, I haven't been sleeping well lately. And I said, well, why don't we talk to the doctor about that? I think that's something we should talk to the doctor about. The woman's 93 years old. She needs a little bit of help. And who am I? I'm the friend that says, I think you should talk to the doctor. That's not good, right? So when you live in a retirement community, Betty is going to live 5 to 7 years longer than Mary independently. So what that means is that if Mary goes into assisted living at 85, Betty is going into assisted living at 90 to 92 years old. Betty will spend maybe a year in assisted living, a year and a half, maybe 6 months in skilled nursing. She doesn't even really use the long-term care as much as someone else would from the outside. So when we look at these examples of life care versus the type C, my opinion of a type C is you don't pay as much money up front. And so you have a little bit more money to give back to your estate or give back to your heirs. And with a retirement community, the likelihood of you being in long-term care for a long period of time is lessened. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody is going to only be in assisted living for a year to a year and a half. No, it doesn't. But I think you know your own health, you know your own family history, and I think you know what would be right for you, and you make those decisions on your own. So I think it's a very good example of what happens with Mary and Betty when you stay home or move to a retirement community. So I wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to ask here some questions, and I know one has already come through, and I'm going to address that in a second. I want to know, what is right for you? What do you think is really right for you? And you don't necessarily have to answer. That's more of a rhetorical question, I guess. I would like to know, what did you learn today? Was this helpful? What did you hear? What did you not hear that you wanted to? Are there questions that you have about what it's like? So I'm going to answer the first question here. Got to pull it up here. Okay. Are you going to do virtual tours of the facilities, or do I have to physically go into each location? Great question. Over COVID, we have been able to do video presentations. And basically what we do is we'd walk you through common spaces, we walk you through the apartment itself, all those types of things, because there's a lot of people that are going, I probably need to make a move. I'm waiting till COVID's over, but I probably need to make a move. And some people are going to wait till COVID's over, and some people aren't. And so we've been doing these video presentations. What I can tell you, which is rather exciting, is that starting on Monday, we are now allowed to have visitors. Only in independent living. We are not allowed to have visitors in assisted living or skilled nursing yet. But in independent living, you can come. We're going to take your temperature, because that's what the rules say. We're going to make sure that you're donning a mask. We're going to make sure that you don't have any symptoms. And we're going to be able to walk you through and show you some of the common spaces and show you apartments. Because even during this time, some people need to move. And that's where this is coming from. In assisted living, we can only do video tours. We cannot do tours where people are allowed to come in and see what it looks like. So we're still kind of stuck there. And what's funny, because I wrote on the presentation earlier, who's the bad guy? Well, we, I guess, have to be the enforcer of the bad guy's rules. Not that it's a bad guy. It's just someone's got to make the rules and someone's got to enforce them. And unfortunately, we're stuck in enforcing them. All right, so we're at 150 here, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. So after this presentation, you will get a copy of this or a link to it through your email, however you communicated with us before this. On the west side of the state, Julie is her name, and Julie will be the one that can tell you who you need to talk to for what level of care you're looking for or what you're looking for. And that's her email address and that's her phone number. And then on the east side of the state, it's Allie, and Allie's email is there as well, and she can help you, figure out who you want to talk to on the east side of the state too. It may be, for the east side of the state, it could be the Cedars of Dexter, which is a kind of like a 55 plus community mixed with a CCRC. It has dining venues, it has a swimming pool and a fitness center and all that kind of stuff, but also has priority access to Chelsea Retirement Community about 8 miles away. So it's a really nice benefit. On the west side, you know, Julie may talk to you about a townhouse over in at Porter Hills Village, or an apartment at Porter Hills Village, or she may talk to you about a home at Cook Valley Estates, or an apartment at Cook Valley Estates. Okay, so that pretty much finishes our presentation. If you have any more questions, I'm going to hang out here for a couple minutes to see if anything else comes through. But I wanted to tell you that I really appreciate you coming out for this session. I hope it was helpful. If you ever want to talk to me, you can address either one of these ladies, and they will give you my email address or my phone number. I'm more than happy to spend time with you to talk with you. Whether it's a retirement community here in Florida, I'm just happy to help someone out. So if there's any more questions, I'm just going to hang out here for a second and see if there's any more. And see what happens here. See if we have any more. Okay, got a couple comments saying nice presentation. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've worked very hard at doing this. I was a little nervous standing here talking to myself. So I appreciate that. Anybody that said thank you. I really do appreciate that. All right, well, if there's no more questions, we're gonna hang up here. And if anyone needs anything, please contact these two ladies, and they'll probably get back to you in a second. Oh, I'm getting a wait for a second here. Let's see if what else is coming. Looks like someone's typing here. Okay, are you allowed to go outside during COVID for a walk? In independent living, absolutely. In independent living, actually, outside of the shelter-in-place order, you can do anything you want. Our independent living residents are getting in their cars and going to the grocery store. I mean, they're independent living. This isn't assisted living. This isn't care. This is an independent living setting. So if you want to go for a walk, you can. If you go through our campus, you'll see people are walking all over the place. That's mostly the independent living residents. But if you want to do things, you have the ability to do that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to hang up now. If anyone has any questions, please contact us. But other than that, thank you very much. And we really appreciate your time. Have a great day.